Smackdown on the Fox
Smackdown
Network.
on the Fox Network?
Yes, we did in fact watch it. And imagine if this past week, the last half hour of SmackDown went up against the first half hour of Rampage. It would have been very interesting to see what happened, because that last half hour of SmackDown was
Did you watch
grueling.
the whole show?
I had it on in the background, and every now and then I would forget to hit the 30-second forward button because there are so many commercials that you fast forward through the commercials and then you end up in another commercial. So I just gave up and I just put the remote down and said, I'm just going to play this in the background and I'm going to look up when I'm interested and I'm going to look away when I'm not. And
so you basically never looked up again.
After the opening segment, there was very little to look up to.
There was,
so to speak.
All I need someone to look up to. Well, and I must say this for the record, right here, out loud. I'll come out with it. I'll bring it forth. This was the best that I have ever seen Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks in a promo segment. I've said that before, they normally look or sound like they're doing a scene from an afternoon talk show hosted by some pseudo psychiatrist or whatever, or an offshoot of Offspring of the Jerry Springer Show. But this was a great fucking verbal segment. And obviously, my new favorite female promo, Big Time Bex, I like Britt Baker. I started to say Brooke Benton. And I love Rainy Nights in Georgia, too. But I like Britt Baker as a heel promo. But she's an entertaining heel promo. You love to hate her, whatever. Becky Lynch is coming off just like an in-command, really asshole-ish bitch. And it's a completely different gimmick, and she's not supposed to necessarily have little funny lines, but her whole thing is her attitude, and it's more real to me than I think any of the other girls in the WWE. They started the SmackDown show with again, poor beleaguered Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, his assistant or second in command or whatever, are in the ring, and it's another contract signing, allegedly. How many contract signings have we seen poor Adam Pearce? They ought to charge him rent for he's in the ring now more than he was when he was wrestling.
He should go to law school. He should go to law school. He's handling all these contracts. Study contract law. He's ready for it.
Yes, I think he is. But anyway, they're in the ring, and Bianca Belair is in the ring. Sasha Banks is standing on the announce desk because they wanted to keep separation between the ladies involved. And Big Time Bex, old Becky Lynch, is at her own table and chair with her feet up on the table in the entrance aisleway. And apparently the triple threat is at Crown Jewel. They will not, on any of their graphics or any mention verbally or anything, say where Crown Jewel is actually taking place at, will they?
I don't know.
Because I didn't hear it. I didn't see it. Apparently you didn't watch very closely, but I'm wondering.
I didn't notice that. I heard the references to Crown Jewel, but I didn't even notice if they said Saudi Arabia or not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. One of our eagle-eyed or eagle-eared, or actually, do eagles have ears? If so, are they good? Or what's the fucking, because like bats, they have radar.
Elephants have ears.
Well, and they got elephant ear sandwiches. That's where I was saying, but I don't know where they get those big fucking buns. But nevertheless, what has good ears? Is it a wolf-eared viewer or listener to us?
A blind man.
Well, no.
Yes, they say when you lose one of your senses, the other senses get more action. I don't know what the term would be.
His eyesight was already deaf to begin with. Then how would that help him?
I don't know, but I would donate to his
said the blind man to the deaf dog that used to belong to the crippled tightrope walker. But nevertheless, one of our listeners that are not just fleet of foot and sound of mind, but also turkey of ear. Listen, figure this out. How often is the point I was going to make? Do they advertise to the general public? We all know this show is taking place in Saudi Arabia because we follow their goddamn the news and their conference calls and their fucking tweets and the blah, blah, blah. We know everything, right? But if the average person walking down the street, smiling at everybody they meet, the average hot child in the city running wild and looking pretty, do they know this thing's in Saudi Arabia, and how does the WWE disseminate that information, and how often, and how hard do they go to try to bury it, is what I'm wondering.
Usually they get Nick Gilder to write a song about it, and 45 years later, people remember.
And I'm wondering if they're so ashamed, as they should be, of taking the Saudi Arabian blood money from the country that held them hostage at one point, and that, beheads with bone saws journalists and things and such of that nature. Why do they bother advertising at all? If they're getting $50 million over there, why do they put it on the network and let everybody see here they are in Saudi Arabia? That's part of the disinformation campaign, where the Saudis want people to think that it's Disneyland over there, the happiest place on earth, right? Every head that you see rolling down the hill from where they've been beheaded in Saudi Arabia has a smile on its face. That's what I've heard. Anyway.
Right. We were talking about Sasha and Becky and Bianca.
We sure were. This opening segment, it was a fine piece of business. Except I'm wondering, after each one of them, they're standing out there, as I mentioned, the one on the table and the one in the ring and the one in the aisleway. And after each of them was introduced, a VTR history package would play. And I'm wondering, are they playing that? I guess they are for the fans live on the big screen. But it has to be, for a live event, that has to be an interminable experience to go through, where you're sitting there for 5 minutes watching these individual girls stand in their places and just be introduced while a video plays on the screen. If you want to watch television, you could have probably watched it on TV at home instead of paying the $50 or whatever. But anyway, I love Becky Lynch. She's got the feet up. She's the female Conor McGregor. The attitude, the delivery, the accent adds to it, especially when she's insulting. She calls Bianca Belair Esther, and Sasha Banks is the disco ball looking fool. And she's got the facials and just the demeanor, as the Fink would say. And as I mentioned, it's different that Britt Baker's a heel of a different sort than Becky Lynch. I'm liking this because you can tell Britt's yanking your chain on the bitchy comments because they're fun too, and she's got the wink wink with Tony. But Becky, of course, Becky Lynch was the most popular girl in the world, right next to Sally Field, a year and a half ago, before she took off, and then they decided to switch her so you could look back and go, well, no, but she's really nice. But if you're just looking at this, she comes off like what do they call them, Brian? The See You Next Tuesdays?
Must-see TV. I don't think we could discuss that here on the show.
But that's the point I'm making. Does she not come off as more real and less like she's reciting something that someone has told her to say in some character that someone has told her to have? She's just got that shit-sniffing look when she's, what about you? With the accent. I like that.
I don't know what that voice was, but I agree with you.
It's about you.
Other than whatever your attempt to impersonate Becky Lynch is. What does she say? What did she say?
What about you? You disco ball looking fool. And you, Esther.
You sound like an old wizard.
They all sound so... There's so much more disdain in the voice, the human voice, when it's got that accent from where she's from over there where she's from. Now
you don't know where she's from. You don't know where she's from.
Where she's from, but now I sound like Daphne on Frasier. Where she's from.
Sounds like you're traveling across Europe. You've had like 5 different accents in the last
Hey, a tour around the world with Jim Cornette, by the way. But anyway, so they had their promo back and forth, and the other ladies were good as well, better than normal, where they put more oomph into it. And then I got a kick out of Bianca Belair tried to throw her big old chair, the chair like you should have instead of that squeaky hunk of shit. She tried to throw her chair at Becky Lynch, and she's so short she couldn't get it over the top rope on the first try. The wheels hung. And then she got mad and kind of pushed it, and it only went like 5 feet. So that was a little flat. But then Becky flipped the table over perfectly. Badass. Landed right on top, and she walked right over it. She looked so badass. Like she may have planned it that way, but that's like flipping one of those bottles, right? Sometimes it doesn't cooperate. And then at the end of honestly, I was loving it completely until they got physical. And once they got in the quote unquote fight, except for Becky Lynch's kicks, everything else looked pretty sloppy. But then they did the spot where Bianca Belair fireman's carried both of them, and Sasha Banks slipped off the top of it, so she spun around and did the Three Stooges ladder spot. And boom, knocked Sasha Banks onto the table, and fireman's carried Becky Lynch onto Sasha through the table. And if I'm lying, I'm flying, and my feet have not left the ground. That sounded like one of the hokiest descriptions that I've ever given. But the way they did it, it didn't come off as awkward. It actually worked out to be a good spot.
Yeah, it was great. It was perfect.
And I would have bet the house that would have not have been the case if I'd heard about it beforehand. But that looked great. So boom, and there you go. So, well, you disco ball looking fool.
Hey, you sound like an old witch. You don't sound like.
Oh no! What? Hey,
come here, my dearie.
I never said I was a goddamn impressionist or an accentist.
That's right.
Anyway, that was that segment. What'd you think of anything I missed in that segment? Are you gonna praise me? Are you gonna pet my head? You gonna rub me behind the ear, Brian, for at least liking some of your girls there more than I normally do?
I am impressed that you gave this a chance, and I thought this was great. I thought Bianca was a star here. I thought all 3 women here were 3 women who seemed like main event quality stars. The way they presented themselves, the way they delivered the bullshit they're given, the physicality, and everyone was over. The fans reacted to everyone. There wasn't someone there who was wutted or booed or shut down. This was great. I loved it. And it was downhill from here with the rest of this show. This was the only thing on this entire show I actually truly loved.